What if I told you that the single greatest crisis of the 20th century, a global conflict that consumed millions of lives, was also the backdrop for history's most vast, unspoken, and brutally efficient mating market? One whose rules weren't dictated by generals, but by the silent, desperate choices of women, revealing instincts far older than politics, armies, or nations themselves. Within the next moments, you will see how declassified documents and personal letters from World War II expose a biological imperative so powerful, so ruthless in execution, that it rewrites everything you thought you knew about loyalty, love, and female desire. This is not a sentimental story. It is a dissection of raw strategy, survival, and the relentless force of hypergamy unleashed in total war. The year is 1942 and the world is on fire. For millions of young American, British, and Canadian men, life has been violently distilled into a brutal binary: the fight for survival and the fragile dream of home. They crouch in frozen foxholes in the Ardennes, breath misting in the dark, fingers numb on rifle bolts, waiting for death or dawn. Fear is everywhere, but so is hope. They scan endless skies over the Pacific, straining their ears for the drone of engines that could mean annihilation. Their world is mud, metal, and constant dread. Yet, amid this chaos, they cling to something fragile but sacred: a memory, a talisman against despair. She is the girl back home. Her photograph rests in their pockets. Her perfume lingers on letters. She is the anchor. She becomes his reason. She is what he believes he is fighting for. He imagines her working in a factory, hair tied back with a scarf, doing her part for the war. He imagines her waiting, writing letters filled with love, her devotion unshaken. This is the mythology of war, the faithful sweetheart on the home front, the Penelope weaving while Odysseus is gone. This story comforts him that it comforts entire nations. It makes the sacrifice noble, softening steel and blood with hope and romance. But history, stripped of sentimentality, tells a far darker tale. For many women, the greatest romantic opportunities of their lives did not come in peacetime dance halls, but in the roaring, apocalyptic chaos of global conflict. War became the marketplace of hypergamy. From Greek, hyper, meaning over, and gamos, marriage, it is the instinctual drive to bond with a partner of equal or greater status. It is not a flaw or a sin. It is biology, not opinion. It is a slow current, guided by custom and constraint. But place this instinct inside a furnace of chaos, where death is daily, where survival depends on status, and where vast concentrations of high-status men suddenly appear, and the current becomes a tidal wave. War did not create hypergamy. It set it free. The home front, we are told, was a place of patient waiting, but for many women it became an opportunistic marketplace. They earned wages, gained independence, and experienced freedoms unimaginable just years before. Yet freedom existed in a vacuum. Young women feared being left behind, wasting prime reproductive years without securing a partner. Into this vacuum marched strangers in uniform: soldiers, pilots, commandos. These were not judged by pre-war status. Their uniforms made them heroes. Their lethality gave them charisma. A sergeant from rural Texas, once invisible, now carried glamour and power beyond any boy left at home. These men offered more than charm, but above all, they represented survival and opportunity. Aligning with them was betting on the future, choosing the side that would win. They were escape routes from small towns and ration lines, a chance at a secure, exciting life. The perfect hypergamic storm was not chance. It was engineered by war itself. The data is merciless. Historian Dan Campbell's Women at War with America lays it bare. U.S. marriage rates skyrocketed, exceeding all projections. Panic drove women to secure bonds before their men shipped out. The urgency was brutal. Marry now, or risk being left with nothing when the tide of war swept away every certainty.
Hey buddy, you've watched to this point. We believe you find value from this video. Do well to subscribe and hit the bell button for more psychology and philosophy videos like this. Now let's continue our video.
But the most revealing data emerged after the war. The U.S. government passed the War Brides Act of 1945 and later the Foreign Fiancés Act, enabling servicemen to bring foreign spouses home. Over 100,000 women from the UK alone immigrated as war brides, with tens of thousands more from Australia, New Zealand, France, Germany, and Italy. It wasn't a trickle. It was a migration. The British government panicked at this exodus. Reports showed their young women leaving en masse for American men. Why? Because the US was untouched by devastation, flush with wealth and abundance, while ration-ravaged Britain offered little. American GIs symbolized prosperity, stability, and escape. Hypergamy wasn't theory here. It was measurable, a demographic shift reshaping societies at the scale of entire nations. From the macro, we descend to the micro, the lives torn apart. In the National Archives, letters reveal anguish not written by generals, but by soldiers betrayed. They are not dry statistics. They are screams inked onto paper. They reveal a human battlefield hidden beneath the headlines. Love and loyalty, tested by war, often crumbled under the weight of hypergamic calculation. Take Private James Miller from Ohio. He wrote faithfully to his sweetheart Mary, sending pay home, sketching their dream porch swing, and tucking her photograph next to his heart. Through mud, blood, and the Battle of the Bulge, he clung to her memory. Discharged in 1945, he returned a hero. But at her doorstep, flowers in hand, he found her married to a bomber pilot. In that moment, Miller's world shattered. His devotion, his survival, his suffering, erased by hypergamy's cold arithmetic. The pilot outranked him. The officer's uniform outshone the private's sacrifice. For Mary, aligning with a higher status man was practical. For James, it was betrayal. His story echoed endlessly across America. Men who had endured hell returned to find themselves obsolete in the eyes of love. Even more brutal was the Dear John letter. It was no simple breakup. It was a specific wartime phenomenon. A woman severing ties with a man still fighting, still risking his life. Delivered to foxholes and forward bases, these letters were emotional landmines. Soldiers expecting warmth opened envelopes that instead carried cold practicality. She had found another, safer, more stable partner at home. Imagine Corporal Evans, grinning at his fiancée's handwriting. He tears it open with trembling hands. His grin dies. The letter states she's moved on with a man who isn't risking his life overseas. She is sorry, but practical. The letter falls from his hands. Around him, silence. Every soldier recognizes the look. They've seen it before, the sudden void left by a Dear John. The military understood the danger. Dear John letters crushed morale and turned soldiers reckless, even suicidal. Some commanders pre-screened mail, withholding these letters until after missions. That's how devastating female hypergamy could be. It threatened not just individual men, but military effectiveness itself. Love and loyalty, often celebrated in propaganda, became liabilities when tested against biological imperatives. From a Darwinian perspective, women's actions were brutally rational. A pilot or officer had better survival odds and greater resources than an infantryman or sailor. Aligning with him wasn't betrayal, it was optimization. To wait for a man with a high chance of dying was to gamble one's future. In war's crucible, sentiment became a luxury too costly to afford. This is the black pill truth. Loyalty is conditional, love is contingent. A woman's devotion rests not on the past, but on present and future security. The soldier who left as a cherished boyfriend often returned to find the criteria had shifted. Trauma, poverty, or low status made him a bad bet. Hypergamy's logic was merciless, and war exposed it without disguise. The battlefield wasn't only in Europe or the Pacific. It extended to the home front, where charm, rank, and security replaced rifles and tanks. The casualties weren't just soldiers' bodies, but their hearts. The mythology of the faithful sweetheart unraveled, revealing a harsher reality. Female hypergamy adapting to crisis with ruthless efficiency. For men, it was a second front, unseen but devastating. This isn't an indictment of women. It's an indictment of the fairy tales men believe. The faithful Penelope waiting decades is myth. World War II stripped away illusions and revealed mating strategies at their most raw. For modern men, the lesson isn't despair, but clarity. Hypergamy is real, primal, and powerful. To ignore it is to live blind to reality's rules. The red pill is realizing love is never unconditional. A man's value isn't static. It's built, maintained, and proven. A job loss, illness, or depression can expose this truth. Many men who believed loyalty was unbreakable discovered it was tethered only to their status and security. The war bride phenomenon is not just history, its lessons echo today. Every dating app, divorce court, and broken relationship reenacts these dynamics. World War II merely magnified what was always true. Hypergamy is timeless, not bound to an era, but woven into the human condition itself. We've examined the home front, but to truly grasp this phenomenon, we must go further, into the ruins of the defeated nations. Germany and Japan were reduced to ash and rubble. Cities collapsed, food vanished, law dissolved. Here, in the 0 point of civilization, hypergamy showed its most ruthless, survival-driven form. It wasn't about love, it was about starvation or survival. In Germany, the concept of Stunde Null, 0 hour, captured the collapse. The occupiers held the power. Food, medicine, shelter, they weren't just soldiers. They were gods who determined who lived or starved. For German women, aligning with them wasn't treason, it was biology. It was choosing life in a world of death. In Japan, devastation was even more absolute. The emperor renounced divinity. Families starved in ruined cities. American occupiers became the only source of survival. The term pan girls emerged, Japanese women trading companionship with GIs for food, money, or protection. To dismiss this as prostitution is shallow. Occupation rules banned fraternization, but bans meant nothing. The gravitational pull was too strong. Her choice wasn't betrayal, it was pragmatism. She had aligned with the victors to live. For Japanese women, the strategy was even sharper. Many pan girls weren't seeking one meal. They sought marriage, a permanent bond with an American GI. They studied English, adopted US mannerisms, and played the role of wives in training. Some succeeded, securing new lives in America's land of plenty. The children born of these unions, occupation babies, embodied this strategy's success. In Germany, they were called Besatzungskinder, or occupation children. Though ostracized, they represented a genetic link to the victors. For their mothers, this was not sentimentality, but an evolutionary investment, ensuring their offspring inherited the winning tribe's advantages. One story illustrates this perfectly. Hyoko, from a once aristocratic Tokyo family, lost everything in the firebombings. Left destitute, Hyoko watched neighbors align with GIs and saw them return with food and medicine. When approached by an American officer, she chose pragmatism. She learned his culture, cooked for him, and married him, leaving Japan behind forever. Was Hyoko's choice betrayal or sacrifice? By leaving, she removed herself as a burden on her starving family and potentially created a lifeline for them later. This is the impossible calculus of hypergamy in crisis. There is no morality here, only necessity. In stripped-down survival, loyalty bends to the primal logic of securing the best possible future for one's bloodline. The lesson is brutal. Hypergamy is not an exception of war. A German soldier, once a hero in 1941, became a pariah in 1945. His character didn't change, but his status did. For men today, this truth translates clearly. Your value is contingent. Past deeds don't secure loyalty. Promises don't guarantee devotion. In every relationship, a man's worth is judged in the present by his ability to protect, provide, and project strength. Lose these, even temporarily, and the bond may vanish. Hypergamy doesn't wait, it recalculates, swiftly and coldly, in every generation. The war bride phenomenon proves hypergamy isn't an abstract theory. It's documented in archives, immigration records, and photographs of smiling women boarding ships with their American husbands. The men they left behind, loyal, wounded, or impoverished, became invisible in history. Female choices wrote a different future, one where security outweighed sentiment, and hypergamy reshaped families, nations, and demographics permanently. Critics argue this view is too harsh, reducing women's choices to strategy. But history doesn't bend to feelings. Hypergamy isn't cynicism, it's reality. To understand it is not to hate women, but to see biology unmasked. What makes hypergamy so destabilizing is its invisibility in peacetime. In stable societies, it wears masks, romance, compatibility, fate. But war tore away illusions, leaving only raw calculations. Women didn't suddenly become different in 1939 to 1945. They simply acted under survival pressure. What was hidden under candlelight dinners and peace became undeniable under air raid sirens and ration lines. The devastation wasn't only for men. Many women who followed hypergamy's call lived lives of exile, shame, or regret. Some were ostracized as traitors, others abandoned when soldiers returned home. Some endured abusive marriages, cultural alienation, or lifelong stigma. Hypergamy secures survival, but it does not guarantee fulfillment or peace of mind. This nuance matters. Hypergamy is a survival strategy, not a happiness strategy. What ensures survival in one moment may lead to misery in another. The German woman who chose a GI secured calories for her children, but may have endured rejection from her village forever. Hypergamy is pragmatic, not romantic. It optimizes survival odds, not emotional satisfaction or legacy. For men today, the war bride story is less about condemning women and more about clarity. It's a warning: do not anchor your worth in promises of loyalty. Instead, build unshakable value that withstands crisis. Hypergamy does not disappear in stable times, it only hides. Strength, status, and resources are timeless currencies, whether in a ration line in 1945 or on Tinder in 2025. The US government even institutionalized hypergamy with immigration policies. The War Brides Act wasn't born from romance novels, but from political necessity. These women were not just wives. They were symbols of American victory, trophies of conquest, and living proof of power. When governments shape laws around mating strategies, it reveals how fundamental these instincts are to human society. The post-war years confirmed this. War brides assimilated, had children, and blended into American life. But their very presence rewrote family trees, shifted cultural identities, and erased entire futures from their homelands. What could have been German, Japanese, or Italian bloodlines became absorbed into the American melting pot, all because of hypergamic alignment during crisis. Biology wrote history more than politics. Few describe romance as the primary motivator. The pattern is too consistent to dismiss. Hypergamy, exposed by war, becomes undeniable when recorded in women's own testimonies. The archive doesn't lie. It whispers the truth men often refuse to hear. The tragedy is that many men returned from war clinging to illusions of loyalty. They had fought, bled, and suffered, believing love at home was unshakable. Their sacrifices were measured against hypergamy's calculus, and they lost. For these men, the battlefield at home was deadlier than Normandy. Modern men must not repeat this mistake. To love blindly, to assume unconditional loyalty, is to walk into a trap. The war bride phenomenon is not ancient history, it is a mirror. In divorce courts, custody battles, and dating markets today, the same principles echo. Security, status, and strength determine loyalty more than vows or sentiment ever can. Men must build unshakable foundations: financial independence, physical strength, mental resilience, and social value. Love can be real, but it is never unconditional. When his value crumbles, it abandons him. The lesson isn't bitterness, that it is preparedness. The archives of World War II reveal what men preferred not to see. Love tested by crisis bends to survival. War brides, Dear John letters, and Pan girls weren't anomalies, they were proof.